Readings of Agrippa, Book 1, Chapter 20. That natural virtues are in some things throughout their whole substance, and in other things in certain parts and members. This is from Cornelius Agrippa's 3 books of occult philosophy, published in the 16th century. And here once again, he is giving the ABCs of magic. He assumes that you know nothing about magic and begins at the very beginning. So Agrippa is outlining step by step how magic works, its theory and its practice. And it's pretty cool that from this magician of the 16th century, we're getting like his understanding of magic. Here Agrippa says that when you think about plants, animals, when you think about trees, that there is power in the whole nature of something, such as a laurel tree or a hazel tree. There's a power, there's an occult virtue. Throughout the 3 books of occult philosophy, it would talk about how the hazel tree has certain qualities, how the oak has other qualities. So we see that the apple tree and the cherry tree have different qualities, different plants, animals, stones. And then also, we might read a little bit of his 3rd book on natural magic, where he talks about magic as the most complete and perfect science. Of course, from this 16th century perspective, magic combines natural science, which is the knowledge of plants and stones and animals and their virtues, kind of the taxonomy, understanding that this plant is different from that plant, understanding the individual qualities of plants and animals and stones. So for Agrippa in the 16th century, it combined natural sciences, but it moved beyond them because it also had an understanding of divine and celestial things. And the magician is able to wed superior things from above to those below. It is a wedding of above and below. It is the practical application of as above, so below. So you're taking material stones and plants and animals, and through these things in nature, through the knowledge of them, you're not just having natural sciences, but you're able to connect them with the celestial and divine worlds. So here Agrippa says that there are powers in some things in their whole substance, like a whole hazel tree, for example, and in some things according to their parts. So let's give some examples before we dive in here. Dana says, hello from South Carolina. Glad you're covering this. Well, thank you so much. It's an honor to have you here. Thank you so much for watching this video and taking part. But here Agrippa talks about that there's power in the whole substance of something. Like an entire plant of a certain kind has a certain power. There are certain powers in its parts. So where can we see this? What are some examples before we dive in? The chapter is like a page. It's not much to read, but let's first take an example. What are some things that the power exists within its parts? First of all, we understand from the reading of Agrippa that the flowers, leaves, roots, wood, bark, gums, and seeds of a tree could be divided according to planet. So, for example, the roots of any plant is associated with Saturn. So the roots. The leaves that have the moisture, the leaves are associated with the moon. The flowers to Venus. The bark and the seeds to Mercury. The wood to Mars. So you could see how the different parts of a plant have different meanings, like the roots of any plant, in as much as it is the root, is associated with Saturn. You know, roses. Clearly, the roses, it's not the leaves of the rose that we're using. We're not using rose leaves or rose roots. We're using the flowers of the roses. So there's a quality not just in the rose plant, but in the flowers of the rose plant. In a mandrake root, it's the root itself that has power. Very few people smoke cannabis root. You don't hear about a lot of people smoking marijuana root. Why? Because it doesn't have the properties, the psychoactive properties in the roots. It's going to be the leaves and the buds. If we look at the book of Tobit, which is an apocryphal text of the Old Testament, the book of Tobit, this woman is unable to marry because there's a certain demon that would strangle her lovers. So the angel Raphael, and this is from the Apocrypha, it's from the Old Testament, in the book of Tobit, he burned the gall of a fish. Not the liver or the eyes or the whole fish, but specifically the gall of the fish. So all the way back to the book of Tobit, whenever that was written, and the Apocryphal in the Old Testament, it's clearly the gall of the fish had power. Fruits, like the apple that you cut down the center and you see a pentagram, clearly the apple, there is a quality in its fruit. You could say that dung would have a different magical property than a cow horn, cow dung. So we see examples of this. Within a human being, menstrual blood and semen are sometimes used for love workings. It's not the whole person, it's the sexual fluids or the menstrual blood. We have the hand of glory that was used in medieval Europe and Renaissance Europe. They would use the hand of an executed criminal to form a candle so that thieves in the night could steal and none of the people in the house would awaken. So we see plenty of examples of this in classical magic, that there are qualities we've already established in Agrippa, that there are qualities in certain stones and plants and animals. And here Agrippa is saying that there are parts that are powerful, such as the eye in an animal or the root. You could even say, in doing witchcraft, you could say that you could use the money clip of a man. You could use the money clip of someone to affect their finances. You could use their glasses to affect their perspective or vision. And you could use their shoes, do magic with their shoes to affect their going. So we see this throughout magic, that it's not just the species, but it's also the part. Cow's tongue is often used in hoodoo and different forms of witchcraft. Cow's tongue to silence gossipers and things. So anyways, we'll get into this text, but we see with cow dung is different than a cow's horn. People don't go around smoking cannabis roots. The gall of the fish mentioned in the book of Tobit. We see all these examples. Flowers are associated with Venus, leaves to the moon, roots to Saturn, the wood to Mars, bark and seeds to Mercury, fruits to Jupiter, gums to the sun. So, anyways, we'll go ahead and get on with this. And of course, I want to remind people, in addition to there being powers in the items, we also need to understand that it's referring not just to the properties of the animal or plant or stone or metal, but also that these receive divine powers from astrological and the divine realms. So let's go ahead and read some of this. We're reading the 3 books of occult philosophy, Book 1, Chapter 20, that natural virtues, again, virtue means power here, that natural virtues are in some things throughout their whole substance, and in other things in certain parts and members. Again, thou must consider that the virtues of things are in some things in the whole, i.e., the whole substance of them, or in all their parts, as that little fish, Echinus, which is said to stop a ship by its mere touch. This it doth not do according to any particular part, but according to the whole substance. Now it's interesting here that Agrippa is actually quoting ancient writers from classical Rome. Pliny, I think the elder, let's see here. And actually, there's a lot of like Greco-Roman, like a lot of what Agrippa's doing, and he's reading Ovid, he's reading Cicero, he's reading the Platonic dialogues, he's reading Macrobius. So Agrippa and the 16th century Renaissance, he's fascinated by classical Greek and Roman writers. And actually, I looked into this. The ship, the fish Echinus, it actually comes from the Greek ekein, to stop or halt, and nous, which means ship in Greek. So if you look up Echinus, if you look up this fish and you go to like an encyclopedia, you'll see that there's a whole bunch of Greek and Roman lore where this fish stops ships. In fact, Pliny, I was reading, talked about how it was used for love philters and also to halt not just ships but legal proceedings. So you could extrapolate from this that the fish can be burned or worked with in a way that can prevent legal proceedings. But anyways, again, thou must consider that the virtues of things are in some things in the whole, i.e., the whole substance of them, or in all their parts, as that little fish Echinus, which is said to stop a ship by its mere touch. This it doth not do according to any particular part, but according to the whole substance. So the civet cat, he's talking about a hyena actually, hath this in its whole substance, that dogs by the very touch of his shadow hold their peace. Now that sounds absurd, but Agrippa is actually quoting these classical like Roman writers that talk about the hyena having a power like that. So celandine is good for the sight, not according to any one but all its parts, not more in the root than in the leaves and seeds, and so of the rest. But some virtues are in things according to some parts of it. That is, only in the tongue, or eyes, or some other members and parts. So in the eyes of the basilisk is a most violent power to kill men, as soon as they see them. The like power is there in the eyes of the hyena, which makes any, Freak translates as civet cat, it's actually hyena, which makes any animal that it hath looked upon to stand still, to be amazed, and not able to move itself. The like virtue is there in the eyes of some wolves. Again, he's quoting classical Roman authors, which if they see a man first make him amazed and so hoarse, that if he would cry out, he hath not the use of his voice. Of this Virgil makes mention when he sings, Morris is dumb, hath lost his voice, and why? The wolf on Morris first hath cast his eye. So Agrippa puts a lot of emphasis on the occult properties of the eyes. And he's actually about to go into the evil eye here. So also there were some certain women in Scythia, and amongst the Illyrians and Triballians, who as often as they looked angrily upon any man were said to slay him. So by looking at someone with like an evil eye, that the eye was something that conferred the power. And it's interesting because when we think of evil eye, a lot of times we don't think about the glance. But if you research evil eye across cultures, the eye is not just a symbol. They don't have these eye stones just because the eye is a symbol. if you research the evil eye in these different cultures, it's actually the glance. It's something that is said to come from the eyes. Also, we read of certain people of Rhodes called Telcanes, who corrupted all things with their sight, wherefore Jupiter drowned them. Therefore witches, when they would after this manner work by witchcraft, use the eyes of such kind animals in their waters for their eyes, for like effects. So he's saying that some witches would have like eye washes that were composed of animals that had that destructive aspect of their sight. In like manner do pismires fly from the heart of a lapwing, not from the head, foot, or eyes. So the gall of lizards, being bruised in water, is said to gather weasels together, not the tail or the head of it. And the gall of goats, put into the earth in a brazen vessel, gathers frogs together. And a goat liver is an enemy to butterflies and all maggots. And dogs shun them that have the heart of a dog about them. And foxes will not touch those poultry that have eaten the liver of a fox. So diverse things have diverse virtues, dispersed variously through several parts, as they are from above infused into them, according to the diversity of things to be received. As in a man's body, the bones receive nothing but life, the eyes sight, the ears hearing. So as in a body, the eyes receive sight, the ears hearing. So like it shows that different parts have different qualities. And there is in man's body a certain little bone, which the Hebrews called loose, of the bigness of a pulse, that is husked, which is subject to no corruption. Neither is it overcome with fire, but is always preserved unhurt, out of which, as they say, as plant out of the seed, our animal bodies shall in the resurrection of the dead spring up. And these virtues are not cleared by reason, but by experience. So, there are a lot of absurd sounding things in Agrippa. I mean, let's just face it. That if you have the heart of a dog around your neck, no dogs will mess with you. But we have to have an honest reading of Agrippa. We should never shy away from anything. But we should also think about, how can this be used? What does this teach us about magic? Agrippa here is saying that there are two ways to think about any substance. First of all, what species is it? Is it a particular type of stone, plant, animal, or metal? Well, that will have different qualities. But he's also saying that we could also think of things in terms of parts. For example, a cow's tongue, specifically for stopping up gossip. Cow's dung would have a different quality than a cow's horn. Like I said, the leaves could correspond to the moon, the roots to Saturn, the bark to Mercury, thorns or the wood to Mars, seeds to Mercury, the fruits to Jupiter, the gums or sap to the sun. So parts of animals, we have rabbit's foot, parts of animals, specific parts of plants have different qualities. And he talks about sympathies and antipathies, where he's saying that having the heart of a dog about you, dogs would stay away from you. Yeah, it's a little absurd, but what Agrippa's pointing to is occult antipathies and sympathies. That certain things draw things to themselves and certain things cast them away. So I think it's really important to kind of understand Agrippa and what he's talking about. So the gall of a fish, a cow's tongue. No one smokes cannabis root. It's not going to do much. It's the leaves and the buds, for example. Like I said, a money clip could affect someone's finances, their glasses, their perspective or vision, their shoes, their going. Okay? So, in a nutshell, basically, that it's not just the whole species, but it's the part. A dead man's hand is said to have different qualities than just anything else. I wanted to read a little bit, and I'm looking for a part here. I wanted to read in the third book a little bit about natural magic. Let me see here. Okay, I'm getting of natural magic. So this is in book 3 of natural magic. Let's take a look here. So this is reading of Agrippa in a different section. It is thought that natural magic is nothing else but the highest power of natural sciences, which therefore is called the height of natural philosophy, and the most absolute consummation thereof, and that which is the active part of natural philosophy, which by the help of natural virtues, from a mutual and opportune application of them, brings forth operations even to admiration, which magic the Ethiopians and Indians especially did use, where the virtues of herbs and stones and other things looking towards it was sufficient. So what Agrippa is saying is, again, this is in the 16th century, it's the pre-scientific era, but he's saying that natural sciences, knowing the qualities of different stones and plants and animals and metals, it weds it to higher forces, because you have a knowledge of these things, but you're connecting, the magician connects it to the celestial and divine forces. It is said that Hierome made mention of it to Paulinus, where he saith that Apollonius the Tyanean was a magician or philosopher, as also the Pythagoreans of this kind were those wise men which came to worship Christ with gifts when he was born, the Magi, which the interpreters of the Chaldeans expound the philosophers of the Chaldeans, such as were Hierarchus amongst the Brahmani, Thespion amongst the Gymnosophist, Buddha amongst the Babylonians, Numa Pompilius amongst the Romans, Zamoxides amongst the Thracians, Abaris amongst the Hyperboreans, Hermes amongst the Egyptians, Zoroastes, the son of Oromassus, amongst the Persians. For the Indians, Ethiopians, Chaldeans, and Persians chiefly did excel in this magic, which therefore, as Plato relates in Alcibiades, the sons of the Persian kings were instructed, that they might learn to administer and distribute their image to the commonwealth of the world, and the commonwealth to it. And Cicero saith in his books of divinations, that there was none amongst the Persians did enjoy the kingdom, but he that first had learned magic. Natural magic, again we're dealing with stones, plants, animals, metals. Natural magic, therefore, is that which contemplates the powers of all natural and celestial things, and searching curiously into their sympathy, doth produce occult powers in nature into public view, so coupling inferior things by their mutual application. Coupling inferior things, things below, plants, animals, things like that, as allurements to the gifts of superior things, the stars and planets and angels and things. By their mutual application, he weds above and below. That from thence arise wonderful miracles, not so much by art as by nature, to which art becomes an assistance whilst it works these things. For magicians, as the most curious searchers of nature, so he's calling magicians the most curious searchers of nature, making use of those things which are prepared by nature, by applying active things to passive, produce oftentimes effects before the time ordained by nature. So it's just interesting that for Agrippa, it's the highest science, because you're taking a knowledge of material stones and plants, and you understand the occult properties of different plants, maybe their healing qualities or whatever else. You're understanding these natural things, and you're applying it to celestial and divine realms. And the point driven home by Agrippa here, again, he's outlining the ABCs of magic. He's taking us from the beginning of magic and explaining step by step how it works. It's not just the power in the whole plant or animal or stone or metal, also the parts. The tooth of someone and you know, the shoes or whatever else, you know, all of these things, the root versus the leaf versus the thorns. If you're going to do a ritual with thorns from a rose, it may have a different effect than using the flowers of the rose. You're taking specifically the thorns, something that causes pain, something that you reach and you hurt yourself. So rose thorns would probably have a different quality to them than the flowers. Cow dung is going to have a different quality to it than a cow's horn. The roots of a mandrake are not the same as its leaves. Okay, so, I mean, that's basically it. He's outlining that there are powers in the whole substance of a plant, animal, or stone or whatever, and then also in different parts thereof. So, we're working through Agrippa bit by bit. We made it all the way to chapter 20, and we're going to keep going. And we're also going to move around a bit with the different things. Let's see here. Arati of Rose. I love your spirit, your knowledge, and your face, amongst other things. Thank you for sharing your studies and contemplations with the world. You're amazing, my love. Well, thank you very much. Thank you so much. You're very sweet. You're oh so kind. All right. So that's it for today. We're gradually working through Agrippa and working through this material. So I'm very honored that y'all would join with me in this, and we are all seekers of knowledge. So it really means a lot. And that's it for today. All right. And I will see y'all in the next video tomorrow. All right. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate everyone that watches my YouTube channel. And I will see y'all in the next video. Have a great day, y'all.